Hi everybody, I'm Beebs Kelley. Welcome back to another video. So, unfortunately, we all woke up to see that the Meg gave another interview. If you've missed out on her previous interviews, I will link the playlist for you here. We've analyzed all of her big print interviews, and this peculiar thing always seems to happen. We have seen a pattern emerge. There are three things she always does in a print interview, and they coincidentally are three things that end up being big mistakes and take away from the opportunity that she has in an interview to try to win some of the public over, to try to get some sort of likability across. And of those three things, the most prominent is usually that she's trying to sell some sort of an image. She wants to be perceived a certain way. She wants to shift the narrative a little bit. She wants to create this sort of image that really feels more like a caricature. She does this every single time. With the Cut interview, the Variety interview, we saw this as well. It's like an identity thing. Like, I'm going to be this type of person now. The Variety interview, she really pushed hard the nerdy mom image is what she really wanted to get across. She kept referencing it throughout. She really was trying to sell hard that she's just this unassuming, nerdy mom. And this was following Queen Elizabeth's passing. Before that, she did the Cut interview and she came across really cutthroat, really cold, really businesslike, but her image that she was trying to get across was victimhood still. She was still harping on about the way she was super hard done by and how unfair things had been on her. Now we have this People interview where she's really trying to get across this I'm returning to my roots sort of a thing, which makes sense with her branding at least. It's sort of on brand in that way, but as you'll notice, she gets off track during these interviews as per usual. The second thing she usually does is try to clap back at headlines or articles or even interviews from other people that she doesn't like or doesn't agree with. Any sort of a narrative that's been in the media or opinions that have been in the media that she thinks are wrong, she pointedly counters them during her print interviews. The third thing is she always accidentally reveals some of her more toxic tendencies and traits in a way that she is clearly not meaning to. It's sort of just those accidental slip-ups or her just not understanding how things actually come across in the real world. So let's get into this People magazine interview today. As you guys know, I'm usually really late to the party on these things, but I happened to be filming today for the Oscars, so I'm popping in this here today. We'll take a more detailed look at the interview in an upcoming video and go through it a little bit more carefully. I'll read it to you guys in case you don't want to go give it a click to give it a read yourself. Then I'll feature it on my channel a little bit later this week probably. Okay, so the cover story is called The Meghan Interview. We've had the Meghan moment. All of it's been unwelcome. We don't want it. We don't need it. They're selling this as an intimate conversation as well. Feels a little bit more like branding towards her show. She's trying to get this going. And I also found this peculiar. Throughout the article, she reveals that she did this interview after she left the Invictus Games. She came back to California and did the interview. And so this means that she didn't have the People interview lined up for the initial release date. She somehow got her agents or WME, somebody, to give her an interview, or she convinced people to give her an interview. I have a feeling Netflix decided to go ahead and put some money up and get her this cover story because the delay has taken a lot of wind out of the sails of the release. It feels like old news. It's sort of stale in the news cycle right now. Meghan's launch and her show, which is debuting tomorrow. It feels stale. And Netflix is counting on this to recoup some of their investment, and the views on the trailers and the sneak peeks and the teasers are all really low and have profoundly more dislikes than likes and a negative reaction. So I think they're nervous and they decided to pony up some money to get her this cover story to try to boost the premiere of the show. I think that's what happened. I have no inside information. That's just my guess from a PR perspective of what went down here, because this was kind of a last minute interview. It was not planned to be done before the original release date over a month ago. It says here, with a new show and lifestyle brand, Meghan is returning to her roots. I'm not sure I would agree with that. Inside her private world in Montecito, why she's back in a honeymoon period with Harry, and what life is really like with Archie and Lily, from pancake mornings to cozy takeout nights. Well, that's a little misleading. I've already read like half the article. I kind of just skimmed it really quickly. I think that's kind of an oversell to try to get people to actually read the article because, Meghan just doesn't sell well. But anyway, Meghan Markle's most intimate interview in years, Harry, the kids, and getting real about her learning curve. It begins. Meghan Markle is curled up in bed with her sleeping 5-year-old son, Prince Archie, on a recent winter evening in Montecito, California. With her phone in hand, she catches up on emails, finalizing details for the launch of her renamed lifestyle brand As Ever and her new Netflix series with Love Meghan. This is a weird way to start one of these articles because it's like, are you in the room? Are you watching her sleep with her son? That's kind of weird and creepy. That's kind of a weird way to start the article and makes me feel like maybe Meghan had a bit of a hand in how they wrote this because she wanted to set the scene that she's an involved mom curled up in bed and working. This is one of those mistakes because the Meg, as we know, has been afforded these opportunities thanks to the family she married into and the notoriety she gained with that marriage and her brief stint as a working royal. And we also know that she is incredibly wealthy and can afford to have all the help in the world to do these things. This image of Meghan working in the wee hours of the night while her children are sleeping just doesn't make sense. It doesn't track with reality, but nevertheless, it's the image that Meghan wants to portray. Her husband is still in Vancouver, wrapping up the Invictus Games. Meghan joined him for several days, stayed close in touch with her mother Doria, checking in on Archie and Lily, who had both gotten sick, and making sure they were seen by the doctor and sipping bone broth. Now she's savoring the stillness at home with Archie as he stirs awake, sleepily telling her, "Mama, don't work too hard." Recalling the moment to People a few days later, the Duchess says, or we could just say Meghan. That's okay, People magazine. You can just say Meghan. It was the sweetest thing. And guaranteed, people are not going to believe this. People will not believe that Archie, who's sick, sleepily woke up to tell Meghan to not work too hard at 5 years old. In the middle of his slumber. I don't think anybody believes that. But again, this is the image that Meghan wants to sell. Like any entrepreneur, Meghan has tackled the hard work of launching a new business, but unlike most, she has done so under an intense spotlight. This is, again, not going to work. This sort of an approach of like, oh, Meghan's just like any other entrepreneur, just like any other working mom. No, she's not. Meghan is not like any other entrepreneur out there. She really isn't, which we'll get back to in a moment. In March 2024, her initial brand name, American Riviera Orchard Montecito, thought we were done saying that, debuted online. 1 month later, the jars of jam. As anticipation grew, questions arose about when the products would be available, while behind the scenes she navigated trademark issues. There are tons of twists and turns, even with the name, she says in her most intimate interview in years. Okay, people, you can calm down. I was figuring it out in real time. That was obvious. And although she has faced intense public scrutiny at every step, Meghan says the experience has been defined by growth. I appreciate everyone who gave me the grace to make mistakes and figure it out, and also to be forgiving with myself through that. It's a learning curve, she says. Well, that is a healthy take that, you have to give yourself grace to learn things. The problem with Meghan is that she debuts these things or puts out teasers or announces things very prematurely to where it actually damages her prospects in the business that she's trying to do, whether that be launching a podcast or a Netflix series or doing an interview or this business that's now called As Ever. Launching it prematurely the way that she does creates this thing where it's in the news cycle so much before anything happens and any progress is made that it becomes stale, just the way this show has with the delay. It's become stale. It's boring to talk about now. It's annoying. It's like you're swatting away a fly every time you hear about it because it's just nonsense. It's a nothing burger. It's a big nothing burger. Nobody wants to hear about it anymore. It's annoying. And additionally, the other layer to it is that she also releases these things or announces these things literally to play petty media games and spite her in-laws. It's ridiculous and childish and weird, and even mainstream media outlets that don't even really cover the royal family pointed out this weirdness of Meghan always launching things or announcing things or making posts on days that are significant for the royal family, or that there's an event for the royal family or a birthday. When she launched American Riviera Orchard Montecito, she did so within a couple of hours of Prince William giving a speech for the Diana Awards, just to sort of spite or piggyback off the press coverage, because alone she doesn't get as much press coverage as if she does on the coattails of the royals. For whatever the reason, it comes across as spiteful and really, really negative and very, very odd to the general public. And so it became a mainstream news story last year. Why is Meghan, this is not a coincidence anymore. Why is Meghan always, every single time, having posts or announcements on the very same days as the real royals, important days? There's no reason for that. And it's statistically improbable that it would be a coincidence. So it's not. So she made a fool of herself with that, and it seemed like the only reason why she pushed it out so prematurely was for that, and then it ends up undermining her efforts and ruining the potential. As Meghan builds her brand clumsily, she also continues to expand her life in Montecito. 5 years have passed since they stepped back from their roles to chart their own path, but their titles remain. That's a nicer way to put it than the Vanity Fair article did, that they're basically failing at everything they've tried so far. She talks about how much she cares about the Sussex name. It's our shared name as a family, and I guess I hadn't recognized how meaningful that would be to me until we had children. I love that is something Archie, Lily, Harry, and I all have together. It means a lot to me. It's part of our love story. This is that self-sabotaging, revealing toxic traits and whatnot, because this brings to mind, for anybody who's paid attention, this is going to bring to mind how she basically just took the titles for Archie and Lily, how she lied on Oprah and said that they weren't getting titles because of isms, but in reality it was because they weren't entitled to titles until King Charles took the throne. So it's only going to bring to light negative history here. Additionally, to say that she cares about the Sussex name because of a family thing would make sense if she had demonstrated those values through her actions, but she hasn't. It seems like she only cares about it because of what it can get her and where it can get her. With her new series debuting tomorrow, she's sharing her personal passions, including cooking, hostessing, and decorating with her biggest audience yet. When your children get to a certain age, when you're not just playing in the sandbox with them, but almost playing in your own sandbox again, it's super joyful. As a woman, a mom, and a wife, to be able to find yourself again in a way that was always present, but that you maybe couldn't put as much attention on as you now can when your kids are a little bit older, is a wonderful feeling. I feel a lot of mothers have this similar sentiment, that when their kids are so little and need so much more time and care, that really that's all they're doing. There are full-time momming mentally and physically and emotionally 100% of the time, because your babies are so vulnerable and toddlers are in need of constant help and assistance. The thing is, we all know, as I've said previously, that Meghan has a lot of help. She has nannies, she has people to clean the house, she has people to help do everything that she needs. And so she doesn't really have the same experience here. She's using the similar words that could connect to mothers out there who have that experience. But we know, when we think about it for a minute, and we don't just take this at face value, that Meghan's experience is very, very different and a lot easier than it is on most people. But interestingly, this is another clapback opportunity for Meghan, because when she did the Instagram posts, people said she kind of was taking a bit of a veiled swipe, saying that she wasn't able to share these things the way she had been in the past when she had to give up the TIG, that it was almost like a sort of camouflaged swipe at the royal family, that they had her stop doing the TIG, but that was just Meghan's choice. She was encouraged actually to keep doing her own thing instead of become a working royal. And she had chosen to become a working royal, but she's been very misleading about that and made everything seem like she was forced into all of this stuff. So once again, it's going to bring to light those basically lies, mischaracterizations that she has put out there in the world. But She's correcting the way that she approached that because of the negative feedback, because of the negative press that swirled around her, basically trying to accuse the royal family of something they didn't do. Here, she's attempting to correct that narrative to some degree, or soften that into, no, it was just I've been so busy being a mom. The author of this article claims that there is no mention of anything royal in her Netflix series, which would be wise. That would be a good choice to make, but we'll see. Whenever Harry visited set, he was always super polite and friendly, a crew member tells People, but it was clear he wanted this to be Meghan's moment to shine. Or, according to some reports, Harry wasn't fully comfortable with this sort of a thing. The next section of this article is subtitled Returning to Her Roots. And here we get more of those clapbacks and selling of an image from the Meg. The writer claims that this show is going to be a natural extension of her pre-royal life. In 2014, while filming Suits, she launched The Tig, a blog on food, travel, and wellness, years ahead of the influencer boom, but as her relationship with Harry deepened, she shut it down in 2017 and later deleted her Instagram before joining royal life. How hard was it to let go? Well, I loved The Tig, but I certainly loved my husband more, so that was a choice I made at the time, and I wouldn't change that for a second. Harry is now loving watching Meghan step back into her creative groove. My husband met me when I had The Tig, and I see this spark in his eye when he sees me doing the thing that I was doing when he first met me. That's a little self-aggrandizing, saying that he gets a spark in his eye watching her do crafting. Maybe. A little bit hard to believe, a little bit saccharine. Meghan says that her new show feels as though we're just spending time together, which is what it ended up being, she says of the crew's presence. I'd make a recipe and say, everyone try this, and there are certain dishes where you just watch everyone flock in. I'd say, we've run out of spoons. It ended up feeling so communal, and that's the spirit of the show. Okay, this feels a little bit contrived, and again is a clapback of the articles that she is difficult to work with, and that some of the people on Netflix found her working on her show to be a challenging experience. So here we have another clap back, and it does feel a little contrived. Even if that were true, I feel like there were better ways to phrase this to make it seem more genuine and more realistic. They tease that she's going to have her new podcast with Lemonada come out sometime this spring along with her products. We shall see if that actually works out. We haven't heard any other news about this, but perhaps she's finally going to start getting her stuff going and stop just teasing it prematurely. Hopefully she learns from the mistakes of delays and premature teases with American Riviera Orchard Montecito. Just from a business perspective, it would be extremely strange to watch her continue that pattern of teasing something or announcing something too far ahead of time, because like I said, it just takes the wind out of the sails. It just makes it turn into a flat, stale story. Meghan claims that she doesn't identify as an influencer. I see myself as an entrepreneur and a female founder, and if the brand ends up influential, then that's great. I think it's a little premature to call yourself a female founder, isn't it? Because, she hasn't had success yet in this arena. So I think that's a little bit premature. I think she wants to be a female founder. I think she wants to be an entrepreneur and very successful. She obviously idolizes people like Oprah, for example, who are actual entrepreneurs. But we have yet to see if Meghan can actually pull it off successfully. It takes so much more work than Meghan seems disciplined enough to accomplish. And although the show paints a picture of domestic bliss with Meghan slow cooking berries from her garden, I thought it was somebody else's garden. Whatever. She doesn't consider herself a trad wife. I like being able to do a hybrid, she says. Chinese food delivery is a favorite, but even when I get takeout, I will try to plate it beautifully. She encourages others to strive for balance, not perfection. Despite her show's beautiful imagery, the series is about doing what you can do and doing it with love. Okay, so I guess she just sort of skips over the trad wife thing. She just kind of blows past that, no. And then she's talking about putting takeout on real plates. Oh, so innovative. As if that's not something everybody does anyway. Why not at least put it on a nice plate and make it look presentable if you're not having to cook? I think everybody does that, pretty much. Next, we get another toxic trait revealed. Instead of just taking ownership of her project, she is pushing off responsibility for something onto someone else. And we've seen Meghan do this a lot. Here's the pattern. For example, let's use her foray into trying to be an author and failing at that, okay? She wrote The Bench. After it came out, people were like, this kind of sucks. This is not a kid's book. I have a review on it. I will link for you up here. Basically, She says that she wrote the book and had it published because it was originally a poem she wrote for Harry, and friends kept telling her that it was inclusive and should be a book. Friends told her to publish it, so she did. Let's use Netflix as another example. Meghan and Harry claim that close friends told them to start filming things and documenting things because they could get a deal with a streamer and make a show. They blamed that on someone else. It was somebody else's idea. It's never our idea if it's something that could be seen as a money grab, tacky, perhaps beneath you, self-serving, these sorts of things. It's always someone else's idea. And it was somebody else's idea for the name of the show because With Love Meghan has been criticized for a few reasons. It's bland and boring. It doesn't tell us anything about the show. It doesn't represent the show well. It's one criticism. Another is that it's basically stealing Pamela Anderson's show and title. Hers is called like Cooking with Love with Pamela or something like that. Pamela's Cooking with Love. I don't know, something like that. Basically super similar to Meghan's show format and name. Also, it's another sign-off similar to As Ever. It's kind of like, boring, bland, beige. Not unique, not interesting, not eye-catching, not stimulating. She's blaming it on her friend here. She says that she had a friend visit the set who came up with the name of the show. Their takeaway was they were so happy to see me as myself. She said, it's like your love letter to all the things you've loved to do. And if you're signing off a love letter, it's With Love Meghan. It felt right and I loved that my friend helped create it. Cringe and very contrived sounding. I'm not sure that this really happened, and I bet a lot of people on the internet won't believe that this really happened. But even if it did, it would have made a lot more sense to just say that her friend helped come up with it when they visited set, instead of always bringing it so Meghan focused, so self-focused of they were so happy to see me as myself. Like that was just so blissful for them to watch me doing something. Here, Meghan is simultaneously clapping back at the show name and trying to sort of push responsibility off there, a toxic trait, rather than just take responsibility. I chose this name. At the end of the day, it was me who decided to call it this. And trying to sell this image that this is how Meghan has always been. This is her new era this year this is Meghan as she always has been. So all those years where she was being mean and lying and doing things that are unkind, those weren't the real Meghan. This is the real Meghan. That's the takeaway. She doubles down on it and says, you have to imagine my friends' experience through the past few years. They spend all this time with me at home and at their houses or at dinners. For them to see who they know to be reflected on screen, it brought them a lot of joy. Are you serious? Who talks like this about themselves? How pompous, how arrogant, how ridiculous. We're going to read through the rest of the article in an upcoming video, but here we see Meghan is still trying super hard to control the narrative. And it's not even a narrative here. She's trying to control how she is perceived. And that's the one thing that you never get to do. None of us get to do that. Nobody can control how they're perceived and the opinions formed about them beyond their own actions, which is actually a good thing. It's an incentive to behave, which the Meg decidedly did not. She spread lies, mischaracterizations, and mistruths about innocent people who could not and would not correct the record easily. That's unforgivable to many, and she spent years complaining from a place of immense privilege, which simply isn't becoming. My final thoughts on the first portion of this article is, it is okay if people view this as tradwife style content. I don't think it's serving tradwife hardly at all. I think it's serving caricature of a pretend homemaker because that's what Meghan thinks will work this time. But even if she was going for tradwife, that's fine. What sets Meghan into a different category with this whole entrepreneurship theme throughout this interview and with this show in general, as compared to literally almost all other hosts of similar genre, is that Meghan only has this opportunity because of her husband. Because she married Harry, she is in the position to be able to afford to do this, the time and the money. To even get the deal with Netflix is all because of who she married, which really rubs people the wrong way and probably wasn't the best genre to dip her toe into, because hosting, gardening, cooking, crafting, launching a business, these are things that take skill and practice, an immense amount of time, a lot of hard work, and she has the opportunities handed to her with the money to hire the best to help her. And so it just places her in this category where it's so much easier. The road was paved for her, but not for anybody else. So for her to put herself in the same category as other working moms or entrepreneurs is rather insulting and takes away from those people's experience that was much harder. When you look at it through that context, it's also very underwhelming that this is all she came up with. This is the best she could come up with. The way she's talking about it, the themes throughout about how hard she's worked dating back to the TIG just doesn't track with reality. The reality is that this show wouldn't be happening without her marriage into the royal family, and thus it's not something people will respect. In this realm, this genre, where people have a greater understanding of the real workload, it's far too obvious the easy ride that the Meg has had to get where she is. I'll be back with the rest of this article in an upcoming video, and I have a lot of other interesting content coming out this week, so be sure you're subscribed so you do not miss them. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you have a happy day ahead, and I'll see you next time. Bye!